The new butler is the heartthrob male lead. By chance, he redeemed my 3 villainous sisters, coaxing them into becoming his loyal dogs, offering up all their resources to him. I, however, was jealous that he took away the affection and tried to sabotage him at every turn. In the end, my 3 sisters grew to despise me. The eldest is a cold-faced CEO. She froze all my bank cards and kicked me out of the family. The second is a gentle doctor. She secretly switched my medication, leaving me in constant, unbearable pain. The third is a popular celebrity. She chose to conceal my identity and allowed her fans to harass me online. I ended up in a tragic situation, abandoned and left for dead. When I was reborn, I decided to be an honest person, but to my surprise, my inner voice can be heard by my sisters. Chapter 1. The last time I saw them was in a rundown rental apartment. I sat in a wheelchair, wearing clothes stained with oil, while Charles, dressed in haute couture that he could never afford before, was surrounded by my 3 sisters, who formed a circle around him. He glanced at me sideways, sneering, "For the sake of us once being the best of friends, how about you apologize to me today? Call me brother-in-law, and I'll forgive you, bringing you back to the family. What do you say? Call him brother-in-law. He doesn't deserve it. It was he who ruined my appearance, turning me into a cripple." His shameless entry into the family was nothing but a scheme to bring it down. Unfortunately, no one believed my words. Everyone thought I was jealous of Charles and that I had brought this upon myself. I gritted my teeth, spitting at him. Call you brother-in-law? I'd rather die. One day, your ugly true face will be exposed in. Before I could finish, a slap landed on my face with such force that I felt my teeth loosen. The ringing in my ears was deafening. Struggling to open my eyes, I saw my eldest sister's cold expression. Her brow was furrowed, and she looked at me as if I were something repulsive. "Jack, if you can't control your mouth, I have no problem tearing it out for you." I covered my face, gritting my teeth. "Sister," she interrupted me again. "Don't call me sister. Since the day you framed Charles, you are no longer our brother." Her words were like daggers, piercing deep into my bleeding heart. The light in my eyes gradually faded. I wanted to say something, but my throat was so dry I couldn't make a sound. My heart started to ache again. I pressed my hand to my chest, gasping for air. Medicine. My second sister, who rarely smoked, had taken up the habit again because of Charles. She stepped closer and pressed her still-burning cigarette butt onto the back of my hand. Ignoring my muted scream of pain, she pointed at my chest and mocked. "Jack, your congenital heart disease might be because your heart is too black. I don't think it's worth treating anymore." The pain made me fall out of my wheelchair, nearly suffocating. My third sister slowly squatted down, looking at my nearly skeletal form, furrowing her brow. "What? Are you playing the victim now? Jack, do you really think pretending to be pitiful will get our forgiveness? Let me tell you, you're thinking too much, and it looks like you haven't learned your lesson either." Her words were full of meaning. I knew what she meant, because I had insulted Charles once. She allowed his fans to mercilessly abuse me. Some even followed me, pushing me out of my wheelchair and watching me crawl on the ground. They often threw dead rats at my door, and the landlord couldn't bear it anymore, kicking me out. I had no choice but to rent this rundown shack next to a garbage dump, one with a door that wouldn't even lock. Without my medication, breathing itself became excruciating, and I felt like a dying fish, collapsing on the ground with wounds all over. My vision started to blur, and I tried to recall any moment in my life that wasn't painful, but nothing came to mind. My sisters ignored my outstretched hands, turning and leaving. They muttered a curse under their breath. How unlucky. I opened my mouth but couldn't summon the strength to struggle any longer. This was the second life I had been reborn into. No matter how carefully I planned, how much I tried, in the end, I couldn't escape the halo of the chosen male lead. This world was a lucky coy story, and Charles was the male lead, working to destroy the family in order to clear the way for the woman he loved. My 3 sisters were the villains, but they would fall in love with Charles at first sight, be saved by him, abandon everything, and willingly become his dogs, offering him all their resources. In the end, to save their lives, my 3 sisters each became a cripple, blind, or a vegetable, willing to sacrifice themselves for Charles. To save their fate, I desperately tried to expose Charles's true intentions. In their eyes, however, I was just jealous that Charles had taken my affection. I went from being the beloved eldest son of the family to a despised cripple, reviled by everyone. No matter how many times I was reborn, Charles would always move between my 3 sisters, successfully replacing me in their hearts. I knew that when I opened my eyes again, everything would return to the beginning. But this time, I was tired. Chapter 2. When I opened my eyes, I was still a little shaken. The rundown, filthy shack had transformed into a bright and cozy living room. Warm yellow lights illuminated the delicately arranged food in front of me. A familiar voice sounded from beside me, tinged with a hint of grievance. "Jack, why aren't you eating? Did I not cook to your taste? I'm sorry. I didn't know you didn't like this. Whatever you want to eat, I'll make it for you. My pupils contracted. It was Charles's voice. At this point, we had already become friends, and he had saved my 3 sisters several times. His reputation as the lucky koi of the Bai family had started to spread, often bringing good fortune to the family. He was no longer wearing servant clothes but was dressed in the designer outfits I had given him, looking even more like the Bai family heir than I did. He wore a face full of grievance, biting his lip like a big man unwilling to speak his mind. I specially asked the housekeeper. She said, "You love seafood, so if you're not eating it, is it because I made it?" Don't worry. I followed the housekeeper's instructions step by step. The act was getting intense, but I still remained silent. Charles became more anxious. "Jack, why aren't you talking to me? Are you disgusted because I came from the slums? Do you think I'm dirty?" I opened my mouth, but all that came out were meaningless sounds. I had developed aphasia. Even in this new life, I couldn't escape the shadow of the past. I pressed my hand against my throat, trying to force myself to say something, worried that if I upset Charles, his 3 devoted sisters would use it as an excuse to torment me. But I still couldn't say a complete sentence. The eldest sister's gaze shifted between me and Charles. After a moment, her expression darkened. "Jack, is this how a Bai family member behaves? No matter whether you want to eat it or not, you should at least finish it." It's Charles's heartfelt gesture. I lowered my eyes, unable to stop myself from sneering inwardly. These 3 were already completely focused on Charles. I thought to myself, how could I possibly reject you? Anyway, you'll be another master of the Bai family soon. What right do I, a cripple who was kicked out of Bai family and lives in the slums, have to reject you? Anyone would think Charles is your real brother with how much you defend him. Oh wait, not a real brother, but a lover brother, and who still remembers my seafood allergy. My life is worth nothing now. For some reason, the room suddenly fell silent. The 3 women, who had been smiling a moment ago, suddenly grew cold and stopped talking. The nauseating seafood was forced down one bite at a time. I suppressed the urge to vomit and forced a smile at Charles. The eldest sister, who had been scowling, as though something deep inside had been pricked, watched me finish the seafood quickly. Seeing my pale face, she was about to leave but quickly reached out. "Jack." The second sister shot her a glare, signaling her to shut up. She turned to me with a gentle expression. "Jack, do you feel unwell today? Let me take a look." Okay, she was a doctor, and it was her who prescribed the heart medication I took in my previous life and also the one who stopped it. Now, she watched me suffer in pain, having long forgotten that I had once been her beloved brother. I stood at the top of the stairs, looking back with my expression hidden in the shadows, where no one could see. I thought to myself, it's just an allergy, it won't kill me. I'm really tired, just stop torturing me. Whatever you want, I'll agree to it. The second sister was stunned. Her face turned pale as she apologized. "I didn't mean to forget about your seafood allergy. Didn't mean to forget." The excuse was both clumsy and laughable. I couldn't be bothered to keep up the act with them anymore. Without a second glance, I turned and left without any hesitation. Chapter 3. As soon as Charles appeared, I knew, no matter what I did, it was always the day I wouldn't be the favored one. So I gave up. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door, pulling me out of my chaotic thoughts. It was Charles again, with his usual pitiful tone. His voice cracked with a hint of tears, and he knocked on the door again and again, as if he would keep knocking until I opened it. "Jack, what's wrong? Did I make you upset? I'm sorry. Please don't ignore me. Okay, aren't we best friends?" His words were full of grievance, but I heard another voice at the same time in my ear. It was still Charles's voice, but the words he spoke were completely different from what he was saying aloud. "System, what's wrong with Jack? These recent actions weren't written in the plot either. And now those female side characters think I'm bullying him. They've deducted a full 10 points of favorability from me." Then, another mechanical voice followed. "Please rest assured, host, I've investigated. Their favorability towards you is still above 50, and the decrease in favorability is still within a controllable range. System." I felt as if I had fallen into an ice cave, the cold creeping up my spine. Though I was in a warm room, I couldn't help but shiver. It was those voices again. In my previous life, when Charles had set me up, causing the car accident and leaving me briefly unconscious, I had often heard him communicating with this mechanical voice in my ear. I had heard them talking about ruining the Bai family, turning it into a stepping stone for Charles. After I regained consciousness, I immediately went to find my eldest sister, intending to tell her what had happened. But no matter what I said, I only received a cold, disdainful look from her. Charles emerged from my sister's study lounge, looking every bit the charming boy next door type. "Sister Sandra, Jack must have just been feeling down, which is why he did these foolish things. It's okay, I forgive him." My eldest sister's face grew darker as Charles played the role of the wronged man. She whispered sharply to me, "Jack, what has happened to you? You tried to stage the car accident to frame Charles, and now you're trying to slander him in front of me. How could he still care for you and look after you when you were unconscious? And I told him not to blame you. The rest of the details are a blur in my memory, but I remember that from that moment on, I was truly rejected by the family. My small suitcase contained only a few simple clothes, and it was pouring rain outside. Yet, my sister remained unmoved, her expression cold as she shoved me out. She looked down at me, filthy and covered in mud. Jack, since you can't accept Charles, family will no longer recognize you as the young master. Without the status of the family's heir, what do you think you are now? Chapter 4. Thinking back on these moments, my body trembled. What's he going to do now? I didn't need to guess. I already knew there was more than just Charles outside the door. I don't know who he's trying to gain favor with this time. Whatever. It doesn't matter anymore. I'm leaving the family anyway. I knew there was no avoiding it. Taking a deep breath, I walked over and opened the door. Charles's hand froze in midair as he knocked, but he wasn't embarrassed. He reached out, trying to take my hand, but I stepped aside to avoid him. Jack, he dragged out my name, speaking with a pout, but his gaze kept drifting toward the third sister standing behind him. Is something wrong? Why are you ignoring me? Please, talk to me. Okay. In the previous life, Charles only acted kind in front of my 3 sisters, especially when they were present. He had probably been acting for their benefit again. The third sister remained silent for a long time before finally speaking, but she was defending Charles. She looked at me, her eyes full of concealed concern. Jack, I've heard from elder sister and second sister these past few days. Is there some misunderstanding between you and Charles? Weren't you two very close before? You don't know how many times he's cried because you've been ignoring him recently. She sighed, her expression one of pure concern for me. I know a very good psychologist. If you don't want to talk to elder sister or second sister, you can talk to me. I'll take you to see him tomorrow. Okay. What kind of nonsense was this? Trying to send me to a psychologist without even understanding anything. I thought to myself, of course, in your eyes, if someone doesn't like Charles, they must have psychological issues, right? When you allowed your fans to harass me online, where was your concern for my mental health? Are you trying to get revenge for Charles and lock me up in a psychiatric hospital? The third sister froze, her expression gradually twisting. She glanced at Charles, then at me, and finally, in disbelief, lowered her gaze to her own hands. Jack, she hesitated before speaking. Did I do something wrong? Please don't hate me, okay? My face was full of suspicion. I shook my head and quickly slammed the door shut. After the door closed, I heard a thud, followed by Charles's pained cry, Jessica. The system screamed, warning. Female character Jessica's favorability -10. Her favorability has now dropped below 50. Please, host, find a way to raise her favorability back up. Stop calling me that. The third sister's voice sounded a little dark. The other 2 fools were deceived by you, but I haven't. You'd better give me an explanation, or I won't hesitate to. I couldn't hear the rest of her words, but I assumed they had walked away by now. I didn't understand the third sister's sudden change of heart, and I didn't want to care about it either. Seeing how she was defending Charles now, it was only a matter of time before she followed the same path as in the previous life. Whatever Charles planned to do with the family had nothing to do with me anymore. For me, nothing was more important than just surviving. Chapter 5. I hardly ever returned to the family anymore, and as a result, Charles had more opportunities to appear at the family's residence. The family was already worried about me causing trouble, so they had hidden my identity. The outside world only knew that the family had a young master who had been pampered since childhood but was in poor health, without knowing who he really was. Now, Charles had almost firmly taken on that title. He didn't bother to correct anyone when people asked. He would simply smile and say nothing. To others, it seemed like he was silently admitting that he was the true heir of the family. My roommate, Daniel, looked at me and mocked. Jack, why aren't you hanging out with Charles lately? Wasn't it just at the start of the semester that you two were always taking the family's car to school together? What happened? You and Charles had a fallout, and now he won't even let you ride in family's car. I glanced at him, lowered my head, and continued organizing my assignments, ignoring him, but he seemed to have hit a nerve and slammed his phone down, which had crashed after his game character died. With a sharp tone, he continued, Charles doesn't even care about you anymore. You couldn't climb into the family's circle, so what's the point of pretending? Charles, who was sitting beside him, looked a bit uncomfortable. He tugged at Daniel's sleeve and quietly said, Daniel, it's fine. Isn't it already well known that Jack doesn't like me? I can't force anything. Daniel crossed his arms, sneering. I just can't stand him acting all high and mighty. Wasn't he desperate to get close to you before? Now he's pretending to be some big shot. He lowered his eyes, seeming lost in thought for a moment. Then, after a brief pause, he glared at me and snarled, Let's see how long you can keep up this act. After they both made their threats, they left. Before closing the dorm door, Charles glanced back at me. His eyes were full of calculation. I heard him ask the system again. System, who has the highest favorability now? The system replied, currently, Sandra has the highest favorability. You need to act quickly. 60 favorability is still too low. You must raise it to 80 within a week, or you won't be able to foresee the next part of the plot. The next part of the plot. I remembered that it was when elder sister went to sign a contract and got stranded at sea. Charles saved her, and that was when they started to develop some feelings for each other. Whatever. What does that have to do with me? I packed up my things, planning to go to the library, but along the way, I started receiving different looks. Some people were pointing at me. Isn't that him? The one they were talking about on the forum? Yeah, Jack, the one who's willing to do anything to climb into a rich family. I heard he and Charles fell out because he failed to get into the beds of the by-family sisters. Ugh, he's so disgusting. He used to be so close to Charles. No wonder he doesn't even talk when he sees him now. If your friend was trying to seduce your sister, would you still talk to him? True, Jack really has no shame. He could have been a decent person, but instead, he chose to be a kept man. I lowered my head, wanting to ignore the words, but just as I was about to leave, a clear voice interrupted my movement. Charles, for some unknown reason, appeared near the library. He walked over and grabbed my hand tightly, not letting me leave. Jack, don't listen to what they're saying. It's all a misunderstanding. They don't believe you, but I do. His words were comforting, but they were just repeated expressions of his subjective feelings. He never offered any real proof that I was innocent. To outsiders, he looked kind, but no one would actually believe I hadn't done what they accused me of. A perfect case of the thief calling out. Catch the thief. Chapter 6. My silence seemed to confirm the accusations, and the insults from the onlookers only grew louder. Charles looked even more aggrieved and helpless than I did. His eyes filled with tears as he gazed at me. Here we go again. Is crying all Charles has left as a tactic? I lowered my eyes, just wanting to distance myself from him, but his grip on my hand was unshakable. Suddenly, the system issued a loud warning. Warning, the female antagonist, Jessica, is approaching. Please be mindful of your image and avoid any actions that could lower favorability. Charles's expression changed, and with a trembling voice, he started speaking louder in my defense. Stop saying things about Jack. He's not like that. You've all misunderstood him. With that performance, anyone would think we were the best of friends. I've seduced your sisters, and yet you're still speaking up for me. Truly, how kind-hearted you are. I let out a quiet, bitter laugh, my gaze lingering on my swollen wrist. It dawned on me a moment later that it was sore. A voice from outside the crowd interrupted my thoughts. What do you mean? Not like that. Even though she was wearing a hat and sunglasses, Jessica couldn't hide her superior figure. Soon, her passionate fans recognized her, and shrieks of excitement erupted. Isn't that Jessica? Definitely. Looks like she's here to back Charles up. After all, her little brother's been hoodwinked by Jack, and he's still determined to be friends with him. Aw, sister, you're so pretty. If I'd known, I would have talked to Charles more. Maybe he would have helped me get your autograph. The noise around me was deafening, but I felt completely detached from it all, as though I were watching from a distance. I thought to myself, when will this farce end? Isn't Jessica supposed to be here to back Charles up? Why is she still hesitating? Shouldn't she just come over and push me down, calling me names like before? Jessica furrowed her brow, and amid the astonished and gossip-filled looks, she walked directly toward Charles, and then handed the cake she was holding to me, standing behind Charles. Her voice was full of affection as she spoke. Jack, I know I've been busy with promotions lately, and haven't had the time to see you. How are you managing living at school? Would you like to move into the apartment I have nearby? By the way, I brought you a strawberry cake. I didn't have time to get your favorite brand today, but next time I will. Okay. The crowd fell silent. Even Charles's face darkened. I pursed my lips, unwilling to take the cake from her. What's she up to now? I get it. She wants to repeat her old trick and make everyone at school think we have a close relationship, so they'll bully me. Jessica, you really never get tired of using the same methods, do you? With her fans in the mix, this time, I might end up being doused in acid just like in the past. The thought of that searing pain and constant, invasive humiliation made me shudder. Sure enough, as long as I was tied to Charles, nothing good would come of it. Jessica's expression turned dark, and she snapped, "What are you all talking about? What do you mean? Jack's seducing me. The By family has only ever had one young master, and that's Jack. Charles is just a servant in our house. How did he become the heir of the By family?" The system's notifications echoed with a drop in Jessica's favorability. Jessica's favorability decreased by 10. Current favorability, 40. Charles's expression shifted to panic. He had originally assumed that, given Jessica's pity for him, She wouldn't reveal that he was a servant in the Bai family. But now, everyone who had just insulted me was casting venomous glares at him. His face turned pale, and tears streamed down his face as he cried out, "What's wrong with being a servant? At least I'm earning money on my own. Unlike you people who were born with silver spoons in your mouths. Anything you want is handed to you, but even so, you have no right to trample on my dignity. My family might not be as rich as yours, but that doesn't make me any less than you." His speech stunned everyone present, and even Jessica was left speechless with guilt. Seeing that his plan was backfiring, Charles hastily stopped and ran off, tears still streaming down his face. The system chimed in at the right moment. "Congratulations, host." Jessica's favorability increased by 20. Current favorability, 50. Chapter 7. Now that people knew I was the real young master of the Bai family, their attitudes toward me were all a little strange. Daniel even posted an apology on the anonymous forum thread where he had slandered me. I was misled by Charles's lies and posted that thread. All the vague evidence came from Charles. He used me as a pawn. I hope Jack can be the bigger person and forgive me. I sincerely apologize to you, Jack. As a result, there were more people criticizing Charles. They called him vain, unscrupulous, and manipulative, someone who, despite claiming to be self-reliant, would throw a fit when his status was questioned. They pointed out that if he really didn't care about status, why didn't he clarify things when people mistook him for the heir of the Bai family? Too bad I didn't pay much attention to the forums. The only thing I knew was that my elder sister called me, her voice cold as she ordered me to come home. It was obvious she was calling me to defend Charles. I delayed until dusk before finally knocking on the Bai family's door. Charles sat in the center, crying, as usual, and the scene immediately reminded me of the last image I saw before I died in my previous life. Here we go again. Jessica seemed the most conflicted. She hesitated before walking toward me, but ultimately stood by Charles's side. "Jack, you went too far with this." I thought to myself, too far? I don't even know what I've done. It's Charles who hasn't clarified his own identity and has been inciting others to slander me. Have I ever said anything bad about him or defended myself? Maybe they all think I'm trying to frame Charles, but no one's ever cared about how I've been unable to speak due to the events of my past life. Seeing their posture, almost like they were begging for forgiveness, I stopped at the door and didn't step any closer. The Bai family had long since lost its place for me. Jessica's expression shifted, as if she had finally understood something. She hurried toward me. "Jack, you." Suddenly, Charles's system beeped urgently. Warning. Jessica's favorability decreased by 10. Current favorability, 40. Warning. Jessica's favorability decreased by 10. Current favorability, 30. Warning. Laura's favorability decreased by 10. Current favorability, 40. Favorability toward Jessica and Laura was plummeting, but only my elder sister gave me a long, deep look before showing no reaction. Charles, seeing this, rushed to grab my elder sister's hand, crying profusely, "Sandra, you know I'm not like that. What I care about in the Bai family has never been money. It's all of you. You're like my real family, making me feel the warmth of a family. Maybe it's my existence that threatened Jack, which is why he." Before he could finish, he was cut off by my second sister's cold voice. "What do you mean? Maybe. You're saying you're not here for the money, but who would believe that? When Jack sent you those limited edition clothes and sports cars, why didn't you reject them with dignity like Jessica said?" Jessica may have played the role well, but her brain worked slowly. It wasn't until my second sister pointed out the flaws in Charles's words that she realized. Her face filled with rage. "Yeah, if you didn't care, why did you keep insisting on riding in Bai family's car with Jack to school? Why didn't you explain when people mistook you for the Bai family's young master? You clearly care more than anyone." Chapter 8. In no time, both of their favorability ratings were nearly gone. Charles's face turned ashen, and he could only cling desperately to my elder sister. With a gentle gaze, she softly ran her fingers through his hair. "Charles, don't be afraid. As long as you haven't done anything wrong, I will stand by you. So, please don't disappoint me." Charles leaned affectionately against her side. Then, in a corner where no one could see, he shot me a provocative glance. Even though my second and third sister's favorability had dropped, the real power in the Bai family lay with my eldest sister. As long as he won her over, what did he have to worry about? He had already decided on his position as the future male head of the Bai family. In his mind, he was frantically calling out to the system, since Laura and Jessica's favorability is already gone, I'll use their remaining favorability to unlock the next plot point related to Sandra." The system hesitated. "Host, are you sure about this? Once the favorability reaches negative numbers, it will completely shift to hatred, and these female antagonists will utterly despise you." Charles dismissed it. "They're just two female antagonists. How much trouble could they really cause me? Hurry up and exchange it." The system complied. Ding. Plot point unlocked. Sandra will be trapped at sea while signing a contract in half a month. The host can prepare in advance and offer assistance, ensuring that Sandra will be completely under your control. A confident smile spread across Charles's face. I could see his intentions clearly, and I let out a cold laugh. Well, I wish you good luck with your rescue plan. With the system's help, Sandra will likely fall for you. After all, saving her life would be a huge favor. You'll probably use that as leverage to demand marriage. She might even agree. Then, you'll marry her while secretly seducing my second and third sisters. The Bai family will truly be blessed beyond measure. Good luck to you all. A nest of snakes and rats, never to be separated. I only hope to be left alone soon. I don't want to be a pawn in your twisted game. My eldest sister gave me a heavy, complicated look. That gaze was too ambiguous for me to understand, but I boldly guessed that she, like in my past life, wanted me to leave, though she couldn't bring herself to say it. So, I packed my things and left the Bai family. I took everything that belonged to me, even had a new bank card issued to deposit my money. This time, I didn't end up like in my previous life, having to rent a dilapidated apartment. My second and third sisters came to visit me frequently, though I wasn't sure whether it was out of guilt or if they were pretending. The sympathy in their eyes was unmistakable. My second sister always made time to talk to me, as though speaking to a child, but when she saw that I was unresponsive, she would leave with a look of disappointment. My third sister had suggested multiple times that I should see a doctor, but I always refused, shaking my head. Half a month after leaving the Bai family, I received an invitation to an art exhibition at sea, hosted by my favorite artist. Without giving it much thought, I packed my things and accepted the invitation. When I arrived, however, the space allocated for the art exhibition was disappointingly small, and most of the cruise ship was dedicated to leisure activities for the rich and powerful. There, I saw my eldest sister, and beside her, in a suit, standing elegantly and confidently, was Charles. He seemed to have anticipated my arrival, a mocking smile curling at the corners of his lips. He whispered to the system, "Since this plot point involves a death, why can't it be Jack who dies? If he hadn't been born into the Bai family, who would he even be? He's better off being a stepping stone for me. At least he'll die with a purpose." Chapter 9. My eldest sister clearly saw me, frowning as if she had a bad premonition. She turned to look at Charles, seemingly asking him something, but by the time she turned back, I had already disappeared into the crowd. Charles's venomous voice, like a festering wound, echoed in my ear. "Jack, you just wait. Let's see who has the last laugh." I sighed, wanting to curse him, but I didn't know where to begin. I knew his intentions were impure, but I hadn't expected his plan to be so bold. He even managed to knock me unconscious and carry me away while I was standing in the crowd at the exhibition. When I woke up, I found myself dangling outside the ship like bait, barely 2 or 3 meters above the dark, raging sea. Beside me, Charles was in the same predicament. When he saw I was awake, he hurriedly squeezed out a couple of crocodile tears, crying out, "Sandra, Jack's awake. You have to save him. My life isn't worth anything." The man in the suit standing beside him spoke with a deep voice. "So, Sandra, have you made up your mind? One is your biological brother, the other your lover's brother. Who will you choose to save?" By now, I understood exactly what Charles was up to. He just wanted to use my eldest sister's choice to strike at my heart. Unfortunately for him, he miscalculated. The moment I died a tragic death in my past life, I had already abandoned all family ties. It wasn't worth it. I didn't care about my eldest sister's decision. All I cared about was whether I could survive. My eldest sister raised her hand, hesitated for a moment, then slowly pointed at Charles, her voice heavy. "You, let go of Charles. He's innocent." Upon hearing this, the man in the suit burst out laughing. Well, Sandra, I didn't expect you to fall this low, sacrificing your own family to save your lover's family. I guess I didn't misjudge you." He waved his hand, and someone pretended to untie Charles, but in reality, they quickly cut the rope holding me, and the other was also on the verge of snapping. The man in the suit gave a dark look. "You think I don't see through your real intentions? You're just afraid I'll hurt your brother, so you pretended to care about Charles." I was speechless. Could it be that this is her true feeling? Maybe she doesn't care about my life as much as she's just unwilling to take a risk, afraid to put Charles in danger. Anyway, both of them will escape in the end, sitting on a lifeboat kissing each other, rather than using me as a harmless threat. You should just cut Charles down now. Sandra might even cry out of sympathy. My eldest sister's expression changed several times, and in the end, she chose to compromise. "You want the South City tender, right? I'll withdraw from the competition if you let him go." Charles instinctively thought she was talking about him and tearfully said, "Sandra, sister." The man in the suit waved his hand dismissively. "Sandra, do you really think you still have the leverage to negotiate with me? The South City land alone isn't enough. I also want the cooperation between Bai and Chief families." This cooperation, I knew, Was the secret deal Charles had sold out later? Why was this man asking for it now? The plot had shifted in ways I didn't expect. Chapter 10. Charles didn't expect this man to ask for so much. This wasn't what he had discussed at all. His plan had been to use the Bai family as a stepping stone to enter the upper circles, not to cripple the Bai family today. He cleared his throat, trying to remind the men in the suit, but the rope holding him was suddenly cut. The men glanced at him coldly. Why are you coughing? Didn't you tell me this information? What? You don't want me to talk about it now? Charles was completely stunned. He instinctively panicked, completely forgetting that he was still suspended, and hastily tried to explain. What are you talking about? What did I say? He desperately tried to communicate with his eyes, but he had long forgotten that making a deal with a tiger means he, too, must have enough support. Otherwise, he'd just be a tasty snack. The so-called cooperation and contracts, to those in high positions like him, were mere tools to be used. How could they care about someone like Charles? It was just too unfortunate that Charles, relying on his system to predict the plot, naively believed everything would go according to plan. A sudden gust of wind rocked the cruise ship, and the ropes that were already precarious snapped. Charles screamed in fright, "Sandra, save me!" And then he watched as my eldest sister ran towards me, throwing herself into the water. Not only he, but even I widened my eyes in disbelief. My eldest sister held me tightly, even using her body as a cushion. Diving into the sea before me, she struggled to hold onto me, trying to find something to cling to while swallowing a few large mouthfuls of salty seawater. She tried to comfort me. "Jack, don't be afraid. Sister's here." I was stunned for a moment, unsure of what act she was putting on, but only dared to curse silently in my heart. What's with the act? Shouldn't you be yelling for Charles now? Asking for a kiss? My eldest sister's expression stiffened, but fortunately, the rescue I had arranged earlier arrived quickly. Even so, when I was pulled onto the lifeboat, I was shivering from the cold. She threw a thick coat over me, then turned her gaze towards the struggling figures in the distance. Charles wasn't lucky. As soon as he hit the water, a large wave tossed him several dozen meters away. By the time he was rescued, he was barely breathing. Once we reached the shore, the men in the suit, who had never intended for anyone to die, cursed loudly as the police surrounded him. Who called the police? I glanced at him and snorted softly, thinking, who else could it be? Of course, it's me. I knew Charles wasn't keeping his plans hidden. How could I not prepare in advance? I'd overheard Charles's conversation with the system. Even if I didn't know the full plan, I could guess enough. So before getting on the ship, I'd already contacted the rescue team and the police. I made sure that every bad actor would be caught. My eldest sister looked at me for some reason, as if she wanted to laugh. Her lips twitched, but she said nothing. She stared at the unconscious Charles, her expression unreadable, before ordering her men who had arrived in a hurry. Get him treated. Don't let him die. She paused for a moment before adding, but don't let him live too well. Chapter 11. Of course, Charles didn't die, but his body was weak, and after being soaked in the icy seawater for so long, he developed an irreversible condition. What he and the men in the suit had planned could be described as kidnapping and extortion, but on a larger scale, it was definitely intentional harm. With the Bai family stepping in, none of them managed to escape, and they were each sentenced to 5 years in prison. My eldest sister also took me to visit Charles. I wasn't sure of her intentions, so I obediently followed her. Through a thick glass window, Charles looked emaciated, and yet he still firmly believed that my eldest sister had come to rescue him. Sandra, why are you only here now to save me? It's too late. Charles is in so much pain. His eyes were filled with tears. Sandra, it was Jack who incited me. It was all his scheme. He seemed to believe that my eldest sister would trust him and that I wouldn't defend myself, so he quickly threw the blame onto me. My eldest sister looked at him and sneered. By now, playing innocent is pointless. Charles's face turned pale. In his mind, he was desperately cursing the system. System, wasn't Sandra's favorability 80? Why is she treating me like this? According to the system, she should be madly in love with me by now. The system's voice nearly turned into a jumble of static, as the damage to the host was affecting its operations. System repair. Repair failed. Sandra's current favorability 80, 70, 60, minus 80. Charles, what? Me, what? What's going on? How did Sandra's favorability drop so suddenly? It shouldn't be like this. A drop from 80 to minus 80 is ridiculous. Could it really be that Charles's system is malfunctioning? Charles was shocked, crying and shouting, still refusing to believe the system's data, and screamed for my eldest sister. After all, she was the only one who could still pull him out of this mess. But my eldest sister ignored his cries and said coldly, "Looks like your so-called system isn't omnipotent after all. Can't even see through a disguise." Charles and I exchanged surprised glances, both of us thinking the same thing. How did she know? I knew Charles had a system because he was reborn, and I could hear his thoughts, But how did my eldest sister know? The person who caused the surprise didn't seem inclined to answer. She simply looked at Charles with cold eyes. Don't you want to get out? Well, Laura's team has recently collaborated with the National Laboratory on a project studying the human brain. I'm sure a person with a system, like you, would be perfect for their research. No matter how much Charles struggled, crying that he wanted to stay in prison, it was all in vain. He was fitted with a helmet-like device, wrapped up like a mummy, and sent straight to the laboratory. Chapter 12. I was once again forced to move back to the By family. After the three sisters parted ways with Charles, it was as if they had suddenly awakened, each scrambling to be kinder to me, but I could never again feel a sense of belonging in this family. Second sister was very busy with the laboratory work. Whenever she came home, she would bring news about Charles. We thought the system was just an intangible concept, but we actually found it in him, she said mysteriously. Guess where the system is? Third sister asked eagerly. Where? Second sister tapped her head. It's in his brain. When we first scanned it, we thought that shadow in his brain was some illness, but now we know it's actually a mass of data that we can't decode with our current technology. Once we crack it, creating any system won't be a problem. As for Charles, according to second sister, he was now a useless person. His body couldn't withstand the intensity of the experiments and had decayed to the point where the laboratory abandoned him completely. After all, the system was in his brain. As long as his brain remained active, that was all that mattered. My eldest sister later had several conversations with me. She told me that it wasn't until I moved back to school that she remembered what had happened before. It turned out she, too, had been reborn. She learned about Charles's system from my thoughts and, fearing I might use some other means against her, she decided to turn the tables and capture both Charles and his system in one fell swoop. In the end, she looked at me, holding my suitcase, and asked in a hoarse voice, "Jack, are you really going abroad?" I stopped right before the security checkpoint and nodded at her seriously. No matter whether Charles had been punished or whether the three sisters had finally realized their mistakes, the pain I had endured couldn't be erased. I couldn't ignore it, nor did I want to force myself to pretend like nothing had happened and continue living as the carefree young master of the By family. Rather than that, I preferred to go abroad to study and pursue my dream of becoming a painter. As for their punishment, perhaps waking up from Charles's deception and realizing what they had done to me was punishment enough for them. After all, their brother, the By family's eldest young master, had already died by their own hands. I have to leave. When I spoke, my eldest sister froze. From the moment I realized that my words weren't meant for defense or to be heard by anyone else, my muteness gradually healed, but I had never spoken to them before. This was the first sentence. I walked past the security checkpoint, facing the clear blue sky and the bright, beautiful future ahead. I didn't look back. The moment I decided to leave, I completely abandoned them. Goodbye. I will no longer be your brother. I am my own person.